What is going on, everyone? How is everyone today, tonight, wherever the hell you are, however the hell you're listening, past, present, or future? Welcome to the Vikings Berserker Brunch. I'm Johnny B. Crazy, and I have my shield maiden, Sassy Sansa, or Sasa, aka Mackenzie L. Burns, with me today, and we will be talking about Vikings Season 5B, Episode 15, Hell. And what an episode it was. How are you doing, Mackenzie?
I'm doing very well, Johnny, and I can't wait to talk about this kind of like very dramatic but also kind of crazy episode that comes this. And we do see a lot of stuff that probably will be important for the end of this season coming up. So, yes.
Very cool. Go ahead and plug a couple things you got. That way we can wait on a few people to pop in the chat.
So,
And the dog show, what's up, my man? Lauren's Corner, how are you doing? You must be lurking. John St. Baptiste, one love, my friend, one love. We'll see you tomorrow. And Jamaica Girl 123, thank you for showing some love and stopping by.
mhm.
And go ahead, Mackenzie. Where can everyone find you and all that jazz?
So you can find me on Johnny's channel here. Um, You can also find me on my channel. We do episode club, so we do a Game of Thrones. We talk everything pretty much Game of Thrones series on my channel. Um, Tomorrow, you and I will be on the Cylon Johns with John St. Baptiste and our other my fellow first time watchers. And yeah, we'll be talking about Kobol's Last Gleaming, if that is part one.
Yeah, part one.
And
That's it.
yeah, the last thing is that today at some point I will be putting out the Danny video that was promised, which is Daenerys' visions of the House of the Undying and how they kind of mark her season 7 storyline into season 8.
Very good, very good. Yeah, everyone check that out. And without further ado, let's just get right into the episode. Hell, really great episode. It starts off with what you see here. The seer lay dying. I think it's three men come in to get the seer's body. Ivar has the body, well, burned to say the least. I would say that, it seems, in my opinion, that Ivar has some reservations about what he's done, but maybe it's just more of a fear of getting caught. Uh, what were your thoughts on this scene? And we can dive a little deep into it if you want.
My first kind of thought on this is obviously they have to, in some way, get rid of the seer's body. At least Ivar has to have him get rid of the seer's body. So, enlisting a few people that can easily get rid of it, or at least go in and not look super obvious that they're carrying out the seer, is pretty good. And then also the fact that Ivar has only like a small group of people there, really, or compared to the rest of Catacat there, while the seer's body is being burned.
Very
Also,
true. We can see it
and
right here, the concern on his face. He didn't look happy about it, like he usually is very happy about doing evil things.
and also because even though the seer is, well, we I can't remember if the seer is like considered Viking or not, but he wasn't given like the traditional Viking funeral because he was just like pretty much burnt in like basically a ditch. So there's that. And also in this, we see a few people have helmets, which was a thing that I was just like, what? We've never seen them really like wear helmets like that. If you go to like the last
Traditionally,
picture,
it's what the Vikings will wear, and I'll go right to the last picture. Yeah, yeah, they were wearing helms, and that's tradition. I feel like that's kind of Ivar's King's Guard in a sense. Uh, hey, Jamaica Girl 123. I hope you're having a good day as well. Have fun at work if you can. And hey, Bobby, how are you today, Bobby? Um, but Yeah, I think that's like that's his entrusted circle or Freddy's entrusted circle, right? I do think there's something to that there, and the fact that he was burned, buried in a shallow grave, reminiscent of what happened in Iceland last week with Floki, and it, it it's a dishonorable burial for sure. And he burns the body, I guess, to get rid of evidence. Although setting the body afire is a Viking tradition, so. Um, And in tradition, they did kind of have shallow graves in general for a lot of things. But a seer should have had like a magnificent burial. To that point, let's talk a little about Vitzik, uh, stumbling upon the crime scene, right? You can go ahead if you want to talk about
Yeah, because the next scene we see of Kattegat is the next day, and that Vitzerk basically walks into the seer's tent. But surprisingly, if you caught it, I think I sent you a picture, is that there's three men with helms guarding the seer's tent, even though there's pretty much like
it. This one,
no
right?
one. Yeah,
There we
that
go.
there's pretty much no one in. They obviously know that there's no one in the tent, so that's kind of like slightly suspicious, but got to keep up appearances. And then once he's in the tent, he realizes that the seer has been killed. And
Well, to that point, real quick, I would like to say while I'm looking at it, they wouldn't allow anyone in. The seer's probably almost higher than a king would be revered. So it would be typical for a guard to be posted so no one could enter. And Vitzerk, being a son of Ragnar, would probably be the only person allowed to enter. So that does make sense. But I am glad you pointed out that's a good, astute observation. Go ahead.
because those are probably the men that were obviously the ones that carried the seer out of his like tent slash home little thing. And then once uh, Vetzer gets in, he realizes that the seer has been killed. And pretty much he can kind of deduce that the only one that can kind of kill the seer is the only ones that are allowed in, like you said. And he knows that obviously it wasn't him that killed the seer because he finds that there's blood on the ground. So he probably deduces that it's Ivar, which kind of carries into the next scene. But what did you think?
Yeah, and I mean, it's very sloppy of Ivar at this point to leave the bloody rag, which was blatantly like panned in on when the body was taken away. But it had to be done right for dramatic effect, and Fitzroy finds it, and uh, there aren't many people that can kill the seer or would want to, and I don't think he immediately thought it was um, Ivar, but I do think definitely after talking to Ivar, he does, and Ivar is at this point, you know, super god Ivar. So he's just drunk, having a good time. Frodis is in his ear as usual. And is this the part where he talks about love? No, no,
No,
no, no, not yet.
no.
Okay.
It's near the
So
end of the episode when you're
what I
talking.
kind of have here is, yeah, his heartwarming speech to Vitzer, and that, of course, being ironic, or not ironic, facetious here, but he knows all, and we must find the seer. It's been taken from us, and Victor seems right through him, and Fred's something else to notice is Fred's baby bump's gotten awfully big, right? So it's been a little while since the last episode, I'm assuming, and we'll find whoever did it. I think that's something that's true of anyone who's guilty seems to be the first one to want to find who did it, and very adamant about it. If you ever watch any true crime shows, that tends to happen a lot. Uh, Yeah, what were your thoughts on that? Hail Ivar, right? Cult much?
Yeah. Yeah. When Victor shows up, it's kind of that thing with between the three of them. That he's like, I know, like, after the conversation, he's like, I know that it was you. Um, but I feel like we've kind of, I think it's the storylines between Catacat and Wessex are a little bit separated in terms of plot time. So it could very well be that it has been at least 5 months ish since, um, pretty much, yeah, like probably 5 or 6 months, or like 5 months at least, since episode 10, anyways. So, and if that around that same time ish is when the conception happened, it's not inconceivable. Plus, also, they could just have her have that size bump for a couple more episodes. They just probably put on the prosthetic a little bit early. Um,
Well,
yeah.
we have seen Alfred grow a nice mustache and little chin goatee.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So
you
you gotta.
have you have killed my father.
Plus
I have been
also,
avenged.
plus also too, like Vikings is not afraid of slight time jumps. Um,
Well, you
so.
kind of had to. The army's
Mm-hmm.
preparing. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want this weird montage of Alfred training with Uba, which I think I really like that in this episode. We'll touch on
Mm-hmm.
that shortly.
Yeah,
Um,
but the kind of thoughts that I have about this is that this is probably one of the last things that Witzig must, I guess, endure, or the last couple things that Witzig must want to use before he potentially goes to the other side, or he just like gives up completely on Ivar. Um, because you have to remember that Ivar has not only had the seer killed, but he's also killed, Witzig's like love of the last couple seasons being Margaret. So it's kind of like one after the
right.
other.
And
So
I am gonna kind
yeah.
of lump in these first two Kattegat scenes, if that's okay with you, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll stay in Wessex for a good while.
Yep.
But like as I was talking about earlier, we see the baby bump, we see uh, this speech, like I was talking about from Ivar. What did you think about that speech? And did you notice anything in particular? And it's amazing in the time allotted. It seems most of Kattegat has definitely fallen in line, right? Within this 5 months or whatever
Yeah.
it's been.
Yeah, I feel like they've kind of just, yeah, because Ivar shows up and he's like, this is like what has happened, that because this he's like the seer is so important to not only every us but to everyone, and that I'll find the person who did this. I will even shed blood for the
Bitzer ain't
person.
having that shit. I just want
Yeah.
to show this picture right here because he's just like, you son of a bitch. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
like you're lying. He's basically like looking at him like, brother, you're lying to our people here. Um, you're trying to like make them believe that you weren't the one responsible for this and all of that. But also when he points back out to Frades in the end of this, and it's just like the thing of like that she's still like Frades is still important, that she's still carrying his child, and that the gods have like made it so. When he goes into the audience and like
Like right
almost
here.
touches, yeah, when he goes into the audience and touches that elderly lady, not elderly lady, but like a lady that's probably older than like most of the ones that we see, it almost seems like there's a scene after where she's just like, I've been like touched by somebody important, because you know that there's like those evangelistic type people who say like, I am God, or I am touched by God, and then if I touch you then you will be healed of all of your sins. So that could be kind of what they're trying to play with that. um but yeah, because Ivar says he's a god, and I guess they've fallen in line, um
Right.
with
And also,
all of that.
I'll just throw in a little bit of food for thought that Ivar is a son of Ragnar. And Olaf stated, we must never forget. Uh, Ragnar Lothbrok, for we are all the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, and they are descended from Odin. That is the myth around them, and that's what they claim as a family. So Ivar jumping to this god status isn't something that's it's something that could definitely happen. I would think because the way he's done it, and then he's done it through fear. And they also think he's killed Lagatha, the greatest shield maiden to ever live. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, the first shield maiden ever in Vikings history, in actual history. Awesome Viking. But yeah, just throwing that in. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
No, yeah, it's just pretty much that there's that whole thing, and then we obviously see Vitser's like, "Ugh, another lie that you're about to tell our people," and yeah, he's just like kind of starting to be even more fed up at this situation that his brother has almost put himself in. Um, yeah, what did you think really beside with this? Or
Well, I'm still got the whole. He's gonna have to. He's gonna have to kill Ivar, but I don't think he's gonna survive. In doing so, we see throughout this episode, if we'll kind of jump ahead just slightly, that, well, it looks like Bjorn's coming back with Harold Finehair. So, that would be it's going to be an opportune moment, and I don't think that Victor's going to switch sides, uh, but it could be that he kills um, Bjorn, but we'll talk about that a little later. As far as this, I feel like Vitzer has to be thinking in his head, there's no way he can let this happen, especially once we get to near the end of the episode. Uh, but if not, we'll just jump right to Wessex if you want,
or
or if
did
you
you
got anything else to
or did you
add.
want to talk about that final scene with Frades and Ivar? If you wanted to talk about that, or we can talk about it afterwards. Which is just like Ivar is like lying in bed with Frades, and he's asking about the baby and what he's meant to do as a god. There's that one. Um, it's like
Okay, well was that in the beginning?
no, that's at like near the end.
Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and lock that in. Why not? So, Ivor goes through this whole speech that he doesn't know what it means to be loved, and I would argue that that's not true. His brothers kind of have always loved him, right? That's how I feel about it. But he did feel like an outcast. How could he not feel like an outcast at that point? I kind of feel his pain, but then again, it's a little misplaced, I think. He's still It makes him somewhat relatable, but it doesn't make him any less of a bad guy to me. Look at those beautiful eyes. Don't you want the eyes of a serial killer? And it does make you feel for him, but it's like I got right here. His brothers loved him, and Ivar tells Freydis, "You are all good. There's nothing bad about you." And all I could say when I was watching this was, "Ugh." And she has him so wrapped around her finger, and she knows it, and she's manipulating him so perfectly that it's hard to watch because you know how dangerous this kid is. And I say kid because he's still kind of a kid. I guess you would call him a man, but
Yeah, because I think like Bjorn must have be like in his 30s or something. I think, and Bjorn was like 12 when Ube was born, or like 13, 15 when uh, Ube was born, I believe. So yeah, there's all of that. So there's a bit of a time between the brothers a little bit. But go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead and talk a little bit about that, and then we'll segue into a little more of the scene.
Yeah. With this and him talking to Frades, like he doesn't know what it means to be a god and all that stuff. And she's like, well, and then she kind of like talks about like him being a god and how when he's a god, this is what he'll have to do, and that you may not get the message today, tomorrow, but you'll get the message, and this is who it will come from, and all that. So this is, in a sense, like Ivar's mother, in a sense, like Sigurd or Aslag a little bit, because she, for Ragnar, was very prophetic, and all of that. So like with the terms of like having the children, like her sons, and like for even Ivar's conception, it's like I will give you a son with like the eyes of a snake or something like that. So it's like the very prophetic thing. So maybe Ivar's drawn
Hmm.
to women like his mother who are kind of prophetic, and they um, use some sort of like slight manipulation in a
That's a
sense to fit
that's a
what
good
they
point.
want. And he did, I think, in this scene call the baby. Is it like it was like Balta or something? So I don't know if that's like Viking or like Danish for
One of the strongest of the gods, but I can't remember the exact god. I'll have to look that up. But the dog show says real quick, he looks like Carl Urban. Carl Urban and Andy Serkis had a baby. Ha! That's hilarious.
that. So yeah, and there's that whole thing with Frades being like he can't wait to join. Pretty much, he can't wait to be born and all of that stuff. And she still thinks that it is a son. Um, like we've talked about before, I think in our last one, is what if it is a girl? Would Ivar still love it, or would he be like his father and throw the baby to the wolves?
I
Um,
don't
and
think he
all
would
that.
ever throw the baby because he did talk specifically about that. His father leaving him, his father not loving him, which that wasn't true either. Uh, I mean, his father did leave him, but it was out of pity. It wasn't because he didn't love him. It was because he thought he couldn't live a happy life being that way. And it was out of ignorance that his father left him there. Yes, Alsock saved him. You make a great point about her kind of being like Alsock, honestly. But she's a little more treacherous, even though Alsock was yeah, she was pretty good at the game. Not good enough though. But she does make a mention right here too of how she was a slave and she's rising up. Well, she just had sex with another slave and that's just a slave baby in there. That's what I'm sitting here thinking in my head. This god baby is nothing but a regular slave baby, which is nothing wrong with that. But if Ivar were ever to find out, uh, he would kill the baby. I don't think the baby's gonna survive. Honestly, I don't think the baby will live to be anything. Uh, and that could be the tragic thing that Vitzer has to do that was so dark for the seer, you know. And kind of my thoughts on it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it'd be something that the brothers haven't really done, because the seers said to Fitzurk that you will do things that your brothers haven't done. And I don't think any of the brothers at least have killed an infant or a newborn baby. So that's a thing. Um,
And he might take down Ivar at the same time, but I believe the seer said he would have to do unspeakable things
mhm.
to achieve it. Unspeakable darkness. Something would happen that would
Yeah, so
be his ultimate undoing. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, it's okay. So it could be a thing of potentially like when he's like finally had this moment of just like I'm completely done. It's maybe killing that baby, killing Frades, and then going for at least the attack against um Ivar, and then something maybe happens because it's supposed to be something incredibly dark, and for pretty much Vitzerk, who's pretty much um, has no real like attachment to anything at this moment. For him to go really dark and to kill a child who supposedly is a son or a potential daughter of a god, to kill the named Queen of Kattegat, and then to try and kill his crippled brother would be something, because Vitzig really right now is a character who hasn't had too much um development. Like he's always just been like in followed. He's kind of like followed either Ube's shadow or Ivar's shadow. But for him to do something kind of crazy, like what we're thinking he might do, would really project his character much farther, I think.
It
Anyway.
really would. And to your point right here, he's literally an Ivar shadow. And uh, you think they'd do just a little better on the carving, but it's funny that we see Ivar erect a statue of himself. That's a vain man right there. And that's how you know he honestly really does not have any self confidence. He really has low self esteem. And this you can tell. If you want a statue of yourself erected, you don't think highly of yourself. You want others to think highly of you. You want that praise. You want that feeling. If you, because you're empty on the inside, and I really do believe that. And this is getting dangerous. It's getting cultish, and I think Vitzer may do anything to stop it. He's standing by his brother. He knows he needs to stay there because he's there for a reason, and that reason I believe is to stop this. But we could also have a twist where he's the person to kill Bjorn, and we'll talk about the battle later, where Bjorn actually does get a nice little eye slice. But yeah, what were your thoughts about the whole erection of the idol and Ivar erects wood hashtag?
Um, like the Ivar having his own statue is kind of just a thing of just like it perpetuates, like you said, the cultish behavior or like almost like the religious behavior. Um, because as you can see, there's a whole bunch of people just standing around.
And it's like, what the hell?
Hmm.
This one guy's like, don't piss off this guy. He'll give you a blood eagle, bro.
Yeah, and it's another thing where Ivar makes a spectacle and pretty much gathers every. Even though this time we didn't see everybody get rushed out of their beds in the middle of the night, but he creates like a spectacle of something. And this time, instead of a human sacrifice, it's what is it? Maybe like a 14-foot statue of himself in wood. So, and it's another thing for Vitzark to be like, okay, my brother's going a little bit too crazy again, but at least it's not a human sacrifice that I have to watch again. So it's kind of one of those two things. It's like, yes, it may be a spectacle, but it's not at least another human pretending to die. Like, he's like, well, at least it's not a pretending Bjorn or something like that's now being broke, like slit throats and burnt to death. So, yeah.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, it's just coming to a head with Ivar. You see, such a fast rise always has a hard fall. And that's kind of where I'll leave it till we get to the end and maybe kind of predicting what's going to happen in the rest of the season. Still a little sick if you like my deep voice. But
uh, Dog has a question about the statue and if there's a reason other than the obvious that the face is painted white.
uh, mm, because of probably what he wore during the ceremony, the white face paint, that's him when he was dressed in his god form during the sacrifice. Don't quote me on that, but that's my best hypothesis.
Yeah, there's that one, or probably because that's how, like, because a lot of the, or at least Bjorn, I think, just sometimes white face paint before they go into battle. So like that's the whole thing of like him as a god being always battle ready.
Well,
And
it's also you want to be seen. You don't want people to not see you while you're fighting. That's the whole point of fighting. And yeah, good point, Mackenzie. Good point. Uh, to that, let's go with post-pubescent Albert. He's all grown up now. He's got a
mm-hmm.
nice little Juan Montoya. What's his name from the damn Princess Bride movie?
Can't
You
remember the
killed my
actor.
father. You're going to die.
Antonio
Yeah,
Montoya or something.
yeah, that's it. Anyways, he starts to decree mm, all his decrees and telling the Northmen he'll give them what they want, their lands, titles. Uh, Bjorn seems slightly reserved about the topic. You know, he's not really digging it at this point, but he has to play along. You really have no choice. And let's see. Sorry for the paper flipping, everyone.
Yeah,
You
this
got.
is. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because this is the scene where pretty much he's like, well, the battle's coming in about a day and a half, 2 days from now. Um, if you if the Northmen keeps their promise and they fight with us, then they will get the lands and the titles that they ask for if we win. So it's this is more or less contingent on if the Northmen survive and Wessex is the winner after this whole battle, and even because as you can see in this picture, it's
Yeah,
like
my
Bjorn's kind of
Christian friends.
my Christian friend. Even Bjorn's kind of a little bit fed up with the whole thing. Like you said, we were gonna get this, like was 2 months ago at this point that we'd have this, or at least a month ago at this point. And Ube's just kind of like, just don't wash out this time. Like don't do anything stupid. Um, yeah, because we have to fight for these people that have sort of kind of became his people with the Christians. Anyway, which is the thing that comes up. Ube converting to Christianity comes up a little bit later with King Harold. Anyway,
That it does. That it does. Um, yeah, I really feel like we're gonna possibly have a separation of the two brothers at some point, but yeah, I don't think they're gonna fight one another. But we do get into the introduction of the catapult. They are supposedly preparing for battle. I don't know why I said supposedly. I'm just stalling for time. I apologize. But we get a nice little cutscene of what Uba's been doing the whole time. Sneak attack, and Alfred's somewhat prepared. But you really see how badass Uba is at this point. I mean, just knock stuff aside like it's nothing. Doesn't even blink when a sword's coming at him, just kind of flicks it away with his thumb. And I thought this was a nice touch to the episode. And I don't know how historically accurate it is if the Vikings introduced the catapult to English, but made for good cinema. What are your thoughts on that, Kinsley?
yeah, because with this, it kind of cuts to obviously Uba's kind of training Alfred, and there's a one point I think in this where Ube kind of like lunges for Alfred, and the guard, like the not the king's guard, but like some soldiers kind of tried to come after Ube, and he goes like, no, no, like Alfred goes like, no, no, it's like fine. So obviously, um, Alfred doesn't want any intervention in terms of his training because he knows he needs to know how to fight because the Northmen are coming and they're coming quickly. But yeah, the introduction of the catapult's kind of funny, I think, because obviously when the fighting ensues, that kind of useful for them. So it's just like a kind of a moment of, because we don't know if Aethelwulf really taught Alfred how to fight, because it was Aethelred that was presumed to sit the throne anyways. So obviously the heir.
Well, I think he's more groomed as a politician, right?
Mhm.
That's what I think as far as it goes with Alfred being Athelstan's son. He was a little more pampered, especially by Egbert and by Judas. And uh, this shows his grit and determination and really kind of helps show his progression into Alfred the Great, all right, from history. And Lauren's Corner makes a good point, trebuchet and catapults were used at the time by the English/Romans. I think. Uh, I think so too. I just believe it was put in there for, well, dramatic effect. Makes it a little cooler. Hey, look, these Northmen aren't so stupid. But they weren't stupid. But they didn't need to introduce catapults. But hey, whatever. Um, yeah, that's kind of all I got to say about that at this point. I do think it foreshadows Alfred as a commander later, and that he is going to be a formidable foe or ally with whomever he ends up with, which it seems like Uba is going to stay by his side, and Tolby's going to stay beside Uba, I believe. So, we'll get into the next scene if you want,
Mhm. Yeah, but
with Bishop Ekman waking up, looking kind of weird in this shot, but he had a nightmare,
mhm.
and he instantly, um, I was thinking he's just dreaming about there's so many conspirators around the king or whatnot, but it just gets more into that. Right after this, we don't get much but him waking up like this, right? And then we have Tolvi and Uba talking about the armband, and I
No,
believe no, this
you
isn't the part.
you get you get Alfred and Elswith
Oh,
first.
I got it. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's when she's actually crowning him, and yeah, yeah, you're almost a king, and then she puts the crown on him, which is a pretty good embrace. It makes you think if she's just put Bjorn aside at this point or not. It didn't go into that here. I don't believe the baby's born, but I find it interesting that is Elspeth pregnant?
She hasn't talked about pregnancy yet.
Okay, okay, so maybe she's not pregnant. Yeah, I was thinking that was gonna happen. All my theories got shot in the face, literally, especially with with oh my gosh, was it what's his damn name? Olaf. Yeah, that theory got shot in the face, but I found it pretty touching. As a little filler moment, but I think where we get to the point of them talking about Uba's armband. I think it's very important because I think this is where the brothers diverge. This kind of accentuates the difference between Uba and Bjorn. And go ahead, what are your thoughts on that, Mackenzie?
Yeah, because we have Elswith crowning uh Alfred king. He's like, you're my king, but there's almost that moment where she's kind of like teary for a second. Um, Whether this is because maybe she's just figuring out that she's pregnant, because I feel like if she's just figuring out that she is, um, she obviously wouldn't say, like, right before he goes to battle, yeah, I may be pregnant and I may be having like your child, like that kind of whole thing. Um, if I think they'll maybe wait one or two more episodes and then try to dispel if she is or not. Because for this, even though they made Frades like pretty much say that she was pregnant literally an episode after she had did she had done the deed. I feel like they might wait because she is a queen. They may make her wait a little bit longer, because there was about probably what a few days between her with Bjorn and her with Alfred. So they may just have her wait like maybe one more episode because she wasn't in the last episode. Um, so they may make her wait like one more episode to for us to confirm or deny, or for them to confirm or deny if she's pregnant or not. But along the lines of we're talking about Uba and Torvi, um, Torvi's kind of really worried about Uba. Like she's kind of like pushed herself like away from Bjorn, even though um, she has kids with Bjorn. So it's kind of like that whole thing of like you like obviously you like your brother's uh, your the brother of your father of your children more, and she's very concerned about um, Uba. But she's like maybe if you have two gods protection over one, that may be a good thing. And yeah, it's just kind of like the protection over with two gods over one, and you can still see him trying to not rely on Odin and all of that and more on the Christian faith because he's kind of just still himself grappling with the fact that he can't really lean on Odin and leaning more on Christianity in this
Well, he
moment.
also thinks Ragnar died a Christian too, right? He believes
Mm,
what Alfred told him.
yeah.
Yeah, so, right. No, no, no. Afternoon, Kabako Carlos. How goes it, man? Uh, yeah, I think that's some really good points. She has him wear it for her sake and his, so that kind of does lead to your point about maybe she is pregnant, right? And we're talking about the same person, or did I
Oh,
could?
well, um,
Are you talking about Elspeth being pregnant? Because I
yeah,
think
like
Toby could be too.
there could be because there was the moment where I don't think they haven't been supposedly intimate since like what episode 9 when he thinks that it should have been Torvi that carried his child. But then there's people who say that Torvi's much old, like a few years older than Bjorn. So and he's in his like mid 30s ish probably at this point. So who knows if Torvi can still
Yeah,
have
well,
more children?
it's like four people. She was with Jarl Borg, right? And then Jarl Borg's son, and then Björn, and then Uba. But she's a independent, strong shield maiden now. You had to give her that for damn sure. Uh, we'll go on to the next scene. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Bishop Ekman.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream, Lagatha. I must forsake you. I must never talk to you again. And I had a thought. The seer was burned, right?
Yep.
And well, he's dead now. But it made me wonder if when the seer was burned, he was having this same dream. And this dream is a little crazy. There's a lot of blood, and the thing that did crawl out of a shallow grave, and there was fire all around. But I do believe this was more of a prophecy of his death as well. And because we see what happens later and how he dies and how they set up the battlefield. But, Lagatha does not like this. And knowing that this is the last time they really speak and this is what they speak of and they leave on these terms, it makes it real. I like that. They didn't get to go out on happy terms, but um, yeah, what were your thoughts on just the little dream sequence and if anything, just quick thoughts or whatever?
Um, with Lagatha, she's kind of had men in her life that have always like kind of sort of loved her, but then they've always left at almost moments where she maybe needed them the most, in a sense. And the one thing that I also saw in the dream sequence was that it's in that first picture that you showed of Heckman, but I didn't get the other picture because it was kind of like gross and I didn't know if I wanted to show it exactly, which was when Heckman looks in this like sort of like a mounted like a it's like a thing where it's just like a slight like hill thing, but it could be like a pregnancy because you do see a newborn or like a baby inside of this.
Ooh. All these babies
So
every damn where. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah.
Because there's an
So
egg, right? A cracked
hmm
egg, which that would
yeah,
could represent a womb for sure.
and there was like a baby that was in there. So this could be
What?
Frady's and uh, Ivar's unborn child. It could mean something
Is
else. It
Lagatha pregnant?
could mean that too.
And she gonna
Um,
have a evil baby that'll rule the world? No, I don't know. But have to look into that and see. And we're doing this while we're here.
oh,
That's
let
what makes
me.
it fun. We get to kind of
Yeah,
speculate while we're here.
there's there's the cracked egg, or it could be a thing of maybe Alfred, and if Elspeth is pregnant, like um, if it is Bjorn's child, then it's a baby that was created outside of a marriage, which in Christian faith is very bad, because before she
Pretty
does
bad, okay.
because before she sleeps with Bjorn, she says, "My gods will punish me," but he says, "My gods won't." So, but she believes more in the Christian faith. So if something happens to Elswith and she's pregnant and it's Bjorn's baby, or if it's just the fact that it maybe is, yeah, that it's Bjorn's baby, could be
Could
a
it be
thing.
a prophecy possibly as well about Magnus? Maybe being the
Mm-hmm.
what you would call the deformed or monstrous baby.
Yeah.
He seems to be pretty treacherous at this point, and who knows where he's gonna flip flop. He seems scorned by the brothers that didn't accept him. I'm pretty sure he's still cool with Bjorn, and I think they have something going on the side already. They gave each other the look. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But God did appear as a deer, and then we had the classic Satan image, which is a pagan image. I thought that's a nice touch. And yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on it, and I think you had all really good points about that. And let's see, what happened after that? I think is doesn't Uba visit Alfred at that point, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, yeah.
It's
Well, they all
uh,
kind of visit each other.
yeah.
And we have Judith, the amazing mother of the year. I really love her character. She is ruthless, a little bit crazy, but I think just the right amount. Not Princess Quinthrith crazy or Queen Quinthrith crazy, but she's just crazy enough to manage in this insane world. And I really love this woman. She gives her son the strength. She gives her son justice. And we'll talk about how she finds out, oh, buddy, if I can remember his name, I have it right here. Let's see. Oh, goodness. I got it right, John. Ah, Lord Conaherd. That's who it is. So he gets found out and he looks pretty happy about it, I must say. He's like, I'm not going, my lord. And I don't know. I love it. I mean, it just goes right into a torture scene. There's not a whole lot you can say about it, but we can kind of gush about dentistry back then, which required a hammer. Uh, but I just thought it was really good, and she pried those questions out of him, and we can just talk about everything with her in general if you want. And yeah, because Judith is just a badass. Go ahead.
Yeah, when because this is right before they all go off to war, and it's Judith talking to her sons, like pretty much like that she'll pray for them, and then they obviously leave to go on horseback, and it's Bjorn is standing beside what or on the horse beside him, not Alfred, but Cuth. Was it Cuthrell or something? Cuthburn, and he's like gets called off and hauled away, and like Alfred's guards kind of drag him in the dirt, which is kind of funny. And then Judith becomes like almost Cersei Lannister in this moment where she kind of tortures someone who's conspiring against her family slash her, and yeah, she kind of uses torture techniques to obviously
Shame, shame.
yeah to get out the answers that she needs to, and she ultimately gets the answer that she wants to know, but after she finds out, obviously she is taken aback by what she finds out from this. And yeah,
Right.
because while that
Yeah,
happens,
we'll save that right to the end, that part. But
yeah,
everything she's going to. How's it going, Almighty Coon? How are you? Oh, 420. That's a great number. Haha. But she's doing all this and she's being ruthless and she's getting what she wants to get and she's seemingly enjoying it. She's watching it the whole time. But she's seen a lot of shit in her day. You cannot deny that Judith has been through hell, but pretty much come through it unscathed because she's so damn smart and she's just ruthless enough to make it. You can't be a really good person in this world and survive. You have to be gray. And that's kind of true to this day. You can still be as good a person as you can be, but there has to be a ruthlessness to you. Or else you'll never make it anywhere in the world. That's why I'm still stuck at the bottom. Anyways, uh, what we have next is, we
it,
have. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to add some more?
no, no, uh, go ahead.
Oh, you can. Okay, so we'll, you know, Fine Hair and Ubo meet, and they have a little sit down, slight powwow, so to speak. And well, we find out the name of the Shield Maiden. Gunhild is her name. I'm probably, I always butcher names, so don't worry about it. But I didn't know it was Olaf's wife, so that's interesting. Especially given how Harold Finehair was talking to her and she was talking to him. But as we know, the Vikings are a little more free than most folks. You could equate them to the free folk. But they sit down, and surprisingly, while you're watching this, Uva offers terms, so to speak, and offers how much gold do they want, then this and that. Um, what were your thoughts on that scene? And we can actually go right back to when Magnus shows up right afterwards. Because there's a quick scene of Judith pulling some teeth that we already talked about. But Uba's playing Fine Hair like a drum at this point, and Magnus comes back. And this is kind of after we see Bjorn and all of them are leaving. Bjorn gives Magnus like a look of approval or a slight nod, so to speak. If I'm not mistaken, this is about when Magnus comes back, and Harold Fonhair realizes he's been tricked by the sons of Ragnar. And I'm sorry, he is kind of dumb. I mean, he is kind of a dumb guy at this point. He's a good fighter because he's still alive, and he knows when to run away. But I thought it was well played by Uba. What were your thoughts on that? And then we'll open up with the battle plans afterwards. And I'm sure I'll feed off you a little bit as well.
Yeah. Well, we kind of get the introduction of Olaf's wife, and you think, oh, okay, this one will be important. Because we obviously didn't get her name in the episode where they were on the boat. So you think, she's gonna be important, especially once we figure out the end when we're in the battle. And when Uba tells um, Harold that he has converted to Christianity, he's like, "You idiot! Why would you do such a thing? You're the son of you're the son of Ragnar. Why would you give up to them and submit to them so easily?" And all of that. And that's kind of like a thing where it's just like, well, he had to do what he had to do. And when Magnus shows up, it's just like, is he actually then really the son of Ragnar at this point? Because in the fact of, unless he's supposedly based off of that thing with Bjorn, like, unless he's supposedly only with Harold just to feed information, but why? It's just so confusing.
Well, if we look at it at the end, we'll just talk about the battle sequence in a minute, which was awesome. I want to say give a shout out to Forrest Blurda. How are you doing? How's it going? Thank you for coming out, and it's on History Channel, Bobby. You should be able to find it streaming on a lot of different things as well, if I'm not mistaken. I may have Mackenzie look it up for me. But uh, to your point, yeah, we find out her name. So I thought she was gonna be from the beginning when they were talking about she feels it in her entrails. That whole little speech from last week. But uh, Magnus, I think Magnus is the son of Ragnar, or at the very least believes he is. Whether he can ever prove it or not, I don't know. But he acts like a little Ivar clone. And you're muted if you're trying to say something.
It's also on Amazon Prime, but
Okay.
um, I don't think I don't think you've seen the trailer that they had for 5B yet, Johnny. Or have you?
I have, but
There's a
uh,
lot. Oh, because
just tell
there's
me.
because there's a because there's a scene where Bjorn is standing with his face having white and black or white and red paint on it, and then there's a girl that's standing behind him. People thought it may be his first wife, um, Porvi or Porn or something.
Torvi?
But no, it's like the one that he
No.
had the daughter with. The one he had. People thought it was her, but what if it's Herman?
Gunhild?
Yeah. So that there's that thing because people thought it would have been just her that actress recasted, but I feel like it's gonna be her, especially after kind of what happens in this um, battle sequence.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a fantastic battle sequence. I'll go through a bunch of pictures and kind of talk about it, and then we'll get kind of into the meat and bones of it. As you see here, the English or the Wessex army with Uba and Bjorn's help have gotten the high ground. Uh, this is really upset Harold Finehair, and we see them down here, and we see, you know, Gunhild towering over all the men right there. She is probably going to be a beast of a person, and definitely based on what happened in the episode where she pretty much almost kills Bjorn. I think it's pretty funny. Not funny, but awesome because this was a fantastic scene. I don't know how they actually achieved this, but she just slices him right across the face, and Bjorn Ironside gets his like all great warriors on TV they get the eye scar. So he had to get that going, and Uba was badass. Bjorn was just destroying people. Lagatha was destroying people as usual. With her and her wig never came off the whole time. It didn't seem to move. I was very impressed by that. I'm sorry, but it's still funny. And then, this whole time we're getting this emotional speech from Alfred. So we know they've won, and we're seeing these flashes. And I think they did really good cinematically on this. I thought it was really fun to watch. Definitely interesting. Take a damn shot. And we have Aethelred fighting. He actually saved Alfred at one point. This will come back, I think, to play in the next episode and possibly on what Alfred's going to decide to do. Like I said, we had Bjorn. And remember that theory I had about Olav turning against Finehair? Well, that got shot right in the face, literally. So that was uh, thank you, Brain, for having a horrible theory. But no, in history, they were best friends. So R.I.P. Olaf. You will be missed, my friend. Kenzie, your thoughts on the battle scene? You can even talk about Cuthbert and his heroic ending, screaming the name of the love of his life. Uh, I don't know if I got a shout of that.
It's Heckman. You mixed.
Heckman. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Um,
What did I say?
Cuthbert.
Oh goodness, that's the one he killed. That's funny. All right.
The um, with this battle sequence, it's not like the ones that we've seen before. Well, it's one that we've seen before because it's history, and history likes to do the whole big wide shots and then the really small things. They do also. Harold questions why there's the ground is so burnt, which is a thing that I was like, But then I remembered that there's a shot where there's fire on the ground, and pretty much they light up this like horseshoe sized U shape around them. So pretty much that they can't escape, or if they do escape, they'll have fire surrounding them, which is kind of a huge
Yeah. They
thing.
literally pinned them by fire.
Which
Here's
I
the shot Mackenzie sent me. Do do
Yes,
do.
and that's when the army is about to clash, and we do see Bjorn fighting. And then there's one moment I couldn't grab it because it moved too fast. But there's a scene where Bjorn basically does like a front flip in between fighting off one person, and then does a front flip and grabs another one. And there's that. So like, and we also see that Ube is really good at fighting. Lagatha's really good at fighting. And then there's that scene where Alfred has learned a lot since Ube's kind of taken him under his wing and started to teach him how to fight and how these are how Northmen fight, because you
I'd
all probably
argue he's learning how to be more of a man.
mm-hmm, and how to fight and all of that. So there's that whole thing, and then obviously his brother saves him from being killed, and then there's him saying "Long live the king." But we see Heckman get an arrow. I think it's like 4 arrows in total, but he gets one arrow, starts screaming Lagatha across the battlefield. She doesn't really,
Oh,
and she kind of doesn't realize it, I think, until his second arrow, that he keeps just screaming Lagatha, and then obviously she sees him eventually, and then he has like two more, and then he's obviously killed after that. And all the while, like you said, Johnny, there's that um, whole scenes with us cutting between um, the battle and Alfred talking about the battle and talking about Hackman and how Hackman was such a great warrior. Hackman. Uh, yeah, Hackman was such a great warrior, and that he'll be lost, and that God protect Wessex. So there's that. And yeah, and we see that Alfred actually got bloody, and that Aethelred got bloody as well during this. Like they weren't just sitting in the back waiting for the battle to win. Like they actually got their hands dirty in this, and they can claim obviously victory whether without they were fighting or not. But the fact that they were able to fight and win themselves, probably in their first like real battle as like adults, um, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I really like how they set this up too, and you knew once he started talking about how, and it was about in the middle of the battle sequence that he was talking about how, and Bishop Heckman, the most renowned fighter and defender of our God and our people, and I thought it was also very nice that his sword may never be held again. Uh, no one is worthy enough to hold the sword, so it's buried with him. I'm waiting for one of the Vikings to dig it up. But that makes me think, will Lagatha take that sword as well? Now, we do find out when he's screaming with Lagatha, we kind of get this last cut of her, and we find out that she cannot be found at this point. We're starting to get these flashes, and we see Bjorn everywhere looking for her, and he just cannot find her. And she wears a belt with Odin's hammer, not Odin's hammer, with Thor's hammer around, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around her waist. And she's just disappeared. She's gonna be a nun, in my opinion. I'm just kidding. Uh, she might be something, but I think she's possibly gone on some sort of pilgrimage through what Heckman has told her of his religion or something. I feel like she feels guilty for his death for some reason. Uh, I don't know. Touch on that a little bit, Kinsey. Maybe you'll help me spark an idea.
Yeah, because all the while they are kind of having it's the part between this and the feast that Bjorn's kind of looking for his mother. Um, like he's looking amongst the dead, probably looked amongst the injured for his mother. And I think it's Ube's like, maybe this is her. And he's like, no, this isn't my mother. She's missing. And it's a moment where I think Bjorn Bjorn's kind of worried because he's always had Lagatha. He's had Lagatha as his mother, always by her side. That's his last parent, um, and obviously he's worried because maybe she does have injuries, and I don't know where she would be. What if she's in the woods? Could potentially have Harold's men taken her as like as
Well,
a captor, like has
can I
been
say
captured.
real quick that in the preview, while you're saying that Harold Finehair does say he's been waiting on Bjorn, but that also could be mean Magnus is there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I really feel like Lagatha went off on her own somewhere, don't you? Some
Yeah,
kind of self-discovery, pilgrimage of self-discovery. I
yeah.
predict she's gonna convert to Christianity at some point.
Yeah, because there's that whole thing of Ragnar went on that thing for like what was it, like a season or just under a season, where he was like gone, because he went on like a discovery for himself, so Lagatha could go on a similar situation. Plus also she's again lost someone that she deeply cares about on a romantic level. Um, so that's kind of like a whole thing, and I guess for her, it's different if she was to go on like this self
Can I ask
discovery.
you a serious question real quick? What
Yeah.
color will her hair be when she comes back? Will
Well,
it
she has.
still?
Well, she has like white gray right now.
Wah. This is the weirdest picture you got. It looks like someone broke her nose.
Well, I'm sorry. The
No, I just think it's funny.
where I got it from,
Oh.
where I got these pictures from, everyone is just like because it was kind of the internet was acting up this morning when I was getting all these pictures. So yeah, it was kind of
No
difficult.
excuses. This is a hilarious picture. It complements the wig perfectly.
Um, but it could be that thing. Um, so she could have like more white hair, or maybe even shorter. It may be a thing where she goes through a thing, and she may have to cut her hair. Um, but the thing about Bjorn is that, and that her leaving at this point is because Bjorn's. She probably thinks Bjorn's an old enough man that I don't have to really worry about him anymore. He'll do what he needs to do, whether it's to stay in Wessex with Alfred or go back to Connecticut. Like she's probably realized that she needs to do this for herself because she's kind of went from Ragnar to her first husband, her other husband, to then just worrying about Bjorn all the time. So now that she's kind of hasn't really done something for herself, um, because of the people in her life. So I feel like we may get a thing where we may see her maybe once, maybe twice more. Because how many? I don't know how many episodes we have left. Maybe we're episode 15, so maybe like four left.
4 or 5, maybe. They
Yeah,
might do 10. I can't remember.
I think it's up to like 20 or something. Maybe I don't remember. Um, but yeah, I feel like we may get to maybe see her maybe once, maybe 2 or 3 more times, like to at least know where she is. Um, like I feel like this is the last like big like a lot of chunk that we'll see of her. We may see her maybe once or twice, but I don't feel like we'll see her much again this season. She'll be an escaped character that will come back with us. Um, but yeah, because
Sure.
after this is like the feast of them celebrating the win against the Northmen. So if you want to
Hmm.
talk about
Yeah, well, they're celebrating the feast, and I want to thank all the Northmen whom embraced our God and fought for our God. And Bjorn is just fuming this whole time. And this kind of cuts to him not being able to find Lagatha, right? Which we've kind of already talked about. And uh, it just kind of shows, Alfred deservedly so should have a feast and a banquet for every damn one at this point. But then, during the middle of this, his mother busts him up with the news right here, and this is something that changes the game completely. Uh, we knew it. Well, we didn't know he was their leader, but she tells Alfred, "Your brother is the leader of the conspirators trying to kill you." To imagine what Alfred has to feel at this point, I can't even fathom because the betrayal on a level of that sense. He just saved him on the battlefield, and we know that Aethelred had a kind of change of heart, right? But no one else knows that. And are they going to believe Ethelred when he tells them I had a change of heart and that's why it never happened? Like, I'm sure what's his face is dead. He was killed after he gave up the information, no doubt. Uh, so that's going to throw a whole wrench into everything. And we're going to see if Alfred makes a dumb mistake here. Uh, I do think there's a chance that he could put Aethelred in exile, in a type of exile or an excommunication type deal. But he may have to kill his brother, but I don't know. I don't think he'll do that. I think Alfred's going to come to a different solution than to kill his brother. He's got too much Aethelwolf. Athelstan in him.
that. Yeah, with this we have like the feast, and I think in this scene too, it's like a pan of everyone across the table. Um, and we do see what Cuthred's daughter looks like. Obviously, well, again because it's just like him and Aethelred. So then it's a moment where they get to celebrate the fact that they won. Because I feel like for Alfred, that was kind of a worry that he had was, are they going to win? Because he doesn't really have the biggest army, and even though Harold doesn't have a big army either, that's like how are they gonna how is Alfred's army and force is going to fight when they have Northmen with them and all of that. So it's kind of like he was probably worried about that, and then the fact that they won is kind of a relief. But that subtle bit of relief, like you said, is trampled on the fact that it's his revealed by his mother, who has like a single tear that rolls down her cheek when she says that it was the fact that it was his brother that was behind him dying.
Well,
So he
there's
might.
something else to this too. So we're gonna have Alfred the Great, and England isn't united yet. They aren't one country, so to speak. That still has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not stopping at defending with the Northmen. He's gonna have plans to expand, just like that's what Egbert wanted. That's what I believe he was groomed to do. And I think we're gonna see Uba help him unite England, so to speak, or unite Wessex, York, all the countries I can't think of at the moment. And that's kind of going to be a campaign going on while Bjorn and Harold Finehair are going to take back Kattegat from Ivar. And then I froze. I'm back, I think. Bjorn at some point is going to have to be an even more a bigger influence navigating travel and exploring. That was his main role in history. He traveled a lot farther than most Vikings ever did. He went to Gibraltar. He went to North Africa. He went to Italy. He went to Rome. Well, Rome is in Italy, but he went to Rome. He went to somewhere in Greece. He went to a bunch of different places. And I think we'll see that after Ivar's taken care of, because I think that's going to happen by the end of this season. But what are your thoughts on that, Kenzie?
Sorry, I just jumped for a second because something happened. But
No, sorry.
okay. The I feel like with because we've kind of reached the end of the episode after like Harold's gone back to Kattegat and he has Magnus with him. I still don't think that Magnus is Ragnar's son. Like I feel like that's just like a ruse that this character has put themselves on. Um,
Well, we know there was a baby. Uh, we know that, I mean, whether he is or not, I don't even think matters. It's just a representation of that. There's really no way to prove it, right? Unless he just says, "Oh, well, I was lying the whole time." But he seems to sure do know an awful lot if he is lying. But that still doesn't mean he's Ragnar's son,
yeah,
even though he does have blue eyes, blonde hair, and Quintrist is dark haired, and he does look like a Northman. Doesn't necessarily have the stature, but who's to say, right? Either way, he's got that tool, and he has Bjorn believed. So either way,
yeah, it's
but I
almost
get your point. Go ahead.
yeah, because it's kind of like a thing of it's like really they've brought in this character pretty much late into the game. Um, so if he's supposed to be so important, why would they almost do this? I don't know. Um, but I guess it's just because if you're told something so much as a child or just in general, you start to believe it. So he was probably told um, that he was this child of this great man and all of that stuff. Because if you remember from the last episode, Lagatha doesn't believe him. She's like, yeah, right. And like same thing with like Uba, like they don't believe him. So and also in that episode when Bjorn starts to really believe him, it's that thing of it's because Bjorn's pretty much lost everyone that he actually cares about. He had his mother lose herself in Heckmond in his whole storyline, and we have Uba who's now
Cannot
entwined
argue.
with the Christians and Torvi. So it's kind of and his two other brothers, Ivor and Witzek, are back in Kattegat, the place that he's supposed to be king of at this point. And so to have someone who claims to be what they are, and to have a brother who actually will supposedly stand beside him, why not believe in it?
Well, could I argue that Bjorn did sit there and listen to him for about 2 days? Listen to everything he had to say, and Bjorn still believed him. Bjorn didn't talk with him, he more listened.
Mm-mm.
That's something I took away from it. And Bjorn is the oldest of the brothers. He has seen the most. Uh, I would trust Bjorn, even though I love Uba as a character. And Lagatha, they didn't give him more than 2 sentences before they just said no. Bjorn listened and listened, and then brought him to them. So it wasn't just like, hey, this guy instantly just said, hey, I'm Ragnar's son. I'm gonna, huh? I think he is. Bjorn actually listened to him for a while and listened to what he had to say and really studied his face while he was talking, studied everything about him while he was talking about this. That's something that I noticed that Bjorn was doing. That's why I think, even if he isn't, he believes it. And that's the most important point. And I would argue that he isn't brought in this late. He's been there. This was set up, and I think it's for the treachery plot. It's for, you know how you had the inside man, the flip flopper. It's definitely a cinematic trope that I think they're using pretty well right now. But that's my opinion. Talk, Sasa.
No, I'm just saying, like, fair enough. It's just a thing, I guess, for them where. So, what is now we gonna do? Is he gonna go to, well, I guess King Harold is going back to Kattegat, so he's gonna show up to Ivar and be like, hey, I'm your
They're
brother.
going back to York. He's gonna go back to
Or,
York.
or
So he's not gonna go back to and have to even deal with Ivor yet.
I bet if he, like, yeah. This would be that thing, but, like, if he does, if they go to York and they stay there for, like, 2 episodes and does go back to, or Magnus at least goes on his little journey to Kattegat.
See, I don't think Magnus will go by himself.
No, I
He
know,
would
like
be
with
an
a few people.
idiot. That would be funny though. Magnus just walks up. Hey, Ivar, I'm your brother. Oh, really? Let me skin you alive.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
like, if but if because he's, well, like as you said, he has one brother convinced. He doesn't have another brother convinced. But if he gets Ivar convinced that this is his brother, what would he do? Like, or not convinced, but if he was to meet Ivar and potentially Vitserk, what would happen? Because we know what Ivar likes to do with some brothers. He likes to throw an axe in their side and kill them. So,
Well, that's kind of the same thing that happened with the seer. I thought was like uh, the same little temper tantrum he had when he put the axe in the kid's skull when he was like 3 or 4 years old.
mm-hmm.
Woohoo! Monster. But uh, that's a good point. I think Vitalik might believe him. If it ever comes to that point, I do. He could be sent into. Hmm. Bjorn could use him as a spy to send in Kattegat, not even reveal who he is, or maybe just to talk to Vitzer, because he. I mean, Bjorn knows his brothers
Mm-hmm.
to an extent, I would think, and I could see something like that happening. It's a good point, Mackenzie. Very thought provoking.
Because they
Uh,
kind of only, because it's kind of only revealed to Bjorn's Northmen that this is, or like Bjorn and a few people, that this is who he is. So for us to know that that's who Magnus is, and then to him to show up at potentially kind of get would be kind of like a thing.
yeah,
Um,
hmm,
so
it's a good
who
thought.
knows?
So we know, based on preview, well, Gunhild's captured. That's the Shield Maiden. But first off, before we get into the preview for next week, I guess let's just talk really quick about the rating for this episode. And I would give this episode 9 bloody axes or 9 Ivar woods for sure. Maybe even like up to a 9.2. I really like this episode. There were a couple things that could have been done differently, but I'm not going to complain. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm going to watch it again. Only watched it one time. That's what this show every week's going to be about. Once Vikings is done, we're going to do a season by season stream and just kind of break it down and go through that. If anybody has never seen the show, it'll be a fun rewatch because you can binge the whole first season. Then we'll do a stream on it, and
Or you can always do it because there's so much that happens, and well, we haven't really talked about this too much, but because they usually do go half seasons at a time. I think the first couple of seasons they did half seasons at a time.
yeah, we
As
can.
well, we can always do half seasons because there's so much stuff. Like if we like when we went through the last 4 episodes before this one, it's a lot that they cover. So
It
yeah.
is, but I would also like let's see. I kind of predict. Well, we'll get into the predictions in just a second. What do you give the rating for this episode, and then what are your predictions for the next episode based off the previews? And we'll just talk. I'll just say really quick. The previews are: we see Gunhild taken captive. She's probably going to be Bjorn's right hand lady. Where is Lagatha? Bjorn's going to meet with Harold Finehair. And I got could Lagatha become a nun? LOL. But go ahead, Kinsey.
So I guess you can say this is like Packery. It's like a 9.25 bloody bloody axes or 9.25 Ivar wax to the forehead. Um,
Ha! That was a good one.
um, and Ivar axe wax to the forehead. And probably predictions for this next episode slash the back half of the season. We won't see much of Ivar, not Ivar. We won't see much of Lagatha. We'll see more crazy Ivar and a little bit more of Vitzerg. Um, we'll have to see Vitzerg and his girlfriend, who's never been given, or that girl that he was with in the last
We'll
episode,
just call her that girl for
that
now.
girl. Um, again, and how their relationship kind of develops. Um, we'll probably see Elswith confirm or deny confirm a pregnancy, or if not, then we'll carry on. Um, and I feel like we'll we'll probably have in the next episode. We could probably see with this the meeting between Finehair and what's his name? Not Finehair. Never mind. I'm thinking and I keep forgetting half of what I want to think about. That yes, that Guthrun, Olaf's wife, will be very important, and she may be um, not a love interest maybe for beyond this season, but maybe a thing where he's just like has someone who's not like a romantic link for him, but important uh, be in his life because
Mm-hmm.
because he has like his mother, and then he also has Torvi, but Torvi was past love, so to have someone who's important um, be involved in his life would be kind of cool.
Decent, decent. I got crazy prediction. That girl is a goddess, and
Which one?
if the girl that Vitzer is talking to and seeing,
Oh,
she's a goddess. Kind of like when oh my god, what's his name, came and slept with Aslog. It was a form of Odin, but I can't remember what his name was now. Anyways, they had sex in the salted fish hut.
oh, yeah, to save Ivar or something, right?
Mm-hmm. To stop his pain.
Yeah.
And I think she's a goddess. Might even be Freyr. Not sure. I have to look into it a little more. That's because it just kind of popped in my head because every single one of the common folk were forced out of their homes to watch that How could she get away? Vitzer could get away. He's the son of Ragnar Lothbrok, but not her. And she's very well made up. She's very beautiful. She doesn't. She's not a. She doesn't seem like a slave. Plus, a slave wouldn't be out at that point in time. They wouldn't be able to be away from the ceremony. And we haven't seen her in the general crowd, so to speak. And if we have, it's just been like a glimpse. Um, kind of, I don't know. I just kind of think she's a goddess, and they do tend to play that in every season at some point. They throw in a god or goddess into the mix.
No, that'd be kind of a cool thing that they would play with that. Because we know Ivar wants to believe that he's a god. So for Bitzer to not be obviously believe himself as a god, but to have like a romantic link that could be seen as a goddess and have that would be kind of cool.
She
Um,
might be the only person to be able to influence him to kill that baby and to kill
mhm.
Ivar. But it's gonna cost him, and she'll probably tell him everything he needs to know.
Yeah.
I do see a mystical part coming for Vitzer because, like you said, he's been relatively flat, but it's building up to something. Go ahead.
And I feel like for her, she also kind of brings in this. She brings in this element for him that it's not uh, his brother's wife or his brother's girlfriend. That is almost like he also gets to have as his unofficial girlfriend or wife. Um, that she's kind of this unnamed character as of this point, but he clearly likes her enough. So yeah, to have that sort of influence, like a romantic influence that has like no really ties to another person for him, it's kind of cool. And if he was to be played by a goddess, in the sense that that would bring more like a slight magical element, and two, then at the same time he gets to have like a somewhat normal relationship, even though it's like if we are to believe she may be goddess like in looks or in and personality slash the whatever it is.
Also, I just thought of something what Bjorn's gonna do. They're not going to Kattegat. They're going to France first.
The Rolo.
I bet they go to France first. Or that could be where they go afterwards. But I think it could be a thing where Bjorn convinces them to join Alfred's army. Alfred wants to conquer shit. If he wants to unite the kingdoms, maybe Bjorn makes this deal. We got to take out France. I want Rollo dead. But it seems as if Bjorn may not go that route. But I feel like France is going to come back into play because of the protection angle that Ivar wanted. Uh, we could see Bjorn go there and then Rollo offer his help to go back to defeat Ivar. I
Yeah,
could see that happen,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Because in the back half trailer, we do see Bjorn eventually goes back to Cat, so he obviously needs an army. He can't have like him, maybe Uba and like Torvi just like show up. And obviously West like the army in Wessex isn't just gonna go all of a sudden follow Bjorn. So he needs to gather some sort of an army, which that'd be a good idea.
I feel like they have to bring Rollo back into this instead of this one scene. It just would make sense. He go gets help from his, hey, this guy thinks he's my father, whether he is or not. Maybe I can use this to my advantage. He knows that it's going to be no easy task to defeat Ivar, even with the army. That what's left of Harold Finehair's army isn't much, so they're going to need more. And I don't think they're going to get it from Wessex. That's why we're going to see a split from Bjorn and Uba, and we're going to see Bjorn travel more. Maybe what happens in France, maybe they never make it to Kattegat. right? They could go from France to somewhere else to somewhere else. Uh, but while they're in France, Witzer could have killed Ivar, and or Björn and them go to France, and then Uba wants to go kill Ivar. But I think Uba just wants land, right? He wants to stay there with his family for the most part, and
Yeah.
kind of don't. I mean, it's up in the air. He's so conflicted. He seems just like Ragnar at this point. He's mirroring Ragnar, at least his point in the show. Yeah, in real life, Ragnar never converted to Christianity or anything of that nature. But show wise, Uba's really mirroring his father. Um, I wouldn't. It's hard to say. I don't know how we could. Don't. Ooh, do you think Lagatha could be going headed to France?
Yeah, it's a possibility. Um,
It's a long ways away, but I mean, where's she gonna go? Really, the nearest church?
um,
She's not going back to
could you go and try and get
Norway.
Floki?
Well, see, that would take an arduous journey on a ship. So no, I see. Mm, I don't know who the hell is gonna show up for Floki. They're gonna have to come back to that. And there's nobody really out and about right now, so maybe we might be introduced to a new Viking, like
Mm-hmm.
some kind of legendary Viking from history, or something. It's hard to say who's gonna land on Iceland. Somebody's got to land there. That's the only way I think. They're not building a ship to get the hell off of there. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Bjorn is gonna go and ask for Rollo's help. They're gonna go back to get Kattegat. I think Alfred's gonna try to conquer more and unite Wessex and all of the other English nations at this point, or what would they call it? The Saxon nation, into England. I think that's his ultimate goal for the entire show. And uh, yeah, I think eventually there's going to be conflict between Uba and Bjorn because you can see that building up. But I think they're going to save that for the last season. So right now, I think Bjorn's going to focus mainly on Ivar. I think Uba's going to say, I don't care what Ivar does. We're going to stay here. We're going to have another little argument between Bjorn and Uba before they leave. And then, we'll see Rollo brought back into the mix, and maybe even the death of Rollo. Uh, and that might make sense. I think Lagertha might go to France. Maybe that's the only person she has left to turn to. I don't think she loves Rollo, but I think she could be the one to say send this to Bjorn. But she might be on a religious pilgrimage and convert to Christianity as well. So I'm flip floppy on all of this. Um, Mackenzie, just tell them real quick where they can find you again, or if you
Yeah.
got any predictions, any more
Um,
predictions.
no, I think what I kind of feel similar way with what you were saying, and pretty much way you can find me is on my channel. You can find me here on Johnny's channel, and you can find me on John's channel as one of the first time watchers, or as
Cylon Jill,
as a Cylon Jill, or a Cylon Joanne, or Joanna, or something. I don't know.
whatever you want to
No,
do.
I haven't figured it out yet. Um, Me and Bobby and Clarissa and Amy will have to figure out our name. Um, but yeah, you can find me there. And at some point today, I will be uploading my Danny video, which has been promised for a while. Um,
The
and also,
video that was promised.
yeah, and episode club. So we'll be doing more of those coming in the near future.
Well, as always, you can check me here next Thursday about the same time. We'll be doing another Vikings episode, so stay tuned. I'll be getting better at this, more interactive, better with the pictures, trying to talk and do everything at one time. Love everyone in the chat. You'll see us at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Silent Johns and
Tomorrow.
whatever she called the episode, Cobal's Last Gleaming Part 1. So that's going to be very interesting. Check out John St. Baptiste's channel. Check out Lauren's Corners channel. Check out The Dog Show, who has incredible content as well. And anybody else in the chat, just check everyone out. Like we always say, if they're not a content creator, they will be someday. It never hurts to subscribe.
Yep.
Um, as always, you know, make a blood sacrifice when needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I got to say about that.
So,
So, my shield maiden, would you like to send us off?
yeah, I just wanted to say, like they always say when they skull, like, say,
Scone. Holla.
holla, holla.